Everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Washington County Board of Education. I call this meeting to order and declare a quorum. We have 5 members present this evening, along with our student board member. It's my pleasure to introduce at this time a 5th grade student from Bester Elementary School, Roman Arthur, who will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Hi, Roman.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
It's good to know. How are things at Bester these days?
Pretty good. I'm enjoying my school year. I got a lot of my friends in my class. It's been pretty good so far. Haven't seen or heard much drama coming from around the building. So, I mean, that's good. It kind of scared me for a second. I was like, what the heck?
That's good to know. Would you like to introduce the grown-ups that you have with you this evening?
Yeah, this evening I have my mom and the principal at our school, Miss Wilson, or one of the principals.
Thank you both for being here. So my notes tell me, Roman, that you're a leader within the building.
Oh, yeah.
And that you are known for making good choices, and that's so good to hear. Hope you'll continue on that path. I understand also that you have been a member of the VEX Robotics Club since 3rd grade.
Yeah, I love like robots and coding and just like building stuff. It's really engaging to me.
And aside from the robotics club, what do you enjoy in your studies?
I enjoy like playing football. I play for the Junior Rebels. I play right tackle. That's my position. I'm on the offensive line, and I really like to. I like to write a bit actually, and I also like to read. I like to write sometimes, just like make my own narratives sometimes, and I also like to read some books.
That's wonderful to hear. I hope you continue with those endeavors. Colleagues, do you have anything that you'd like to ask Roman? Roman, were you going to say something?
I just said good job. Thanks for joining us today.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for leading us in the pledge and a moment of silence. We appreciate it. We hope you have a good rest of the year. This time we'll have approval of this evening's agenda. Is there a motion, please?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Any discussion of the agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor? Okay. So we have 5 affirmative. We have a unanimous approval of the agenda with the student member concurring. And we'll now have approval of the minutes.
Yeah, President Williams, I have 5 motions for consideration. First one, I move to approve closed session minutes dated Tuesday, August 20th, 2024.
Mr. Evans, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. All those in favor of approval, please raise your hand. Okay, we have 4 and 1 abstention. So we have that set approved.
Next one is I move to approve business meeting minutes dated Tuesday, August 20th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Do we have any additions or corrections to the business meeting minutes of August 20th, 2024? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor? All right, we have 4 abstentions, 1 abstention. Student member concurs, so we have that set approved.
Next one, I move to approve the work session minutes dated Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of the work session dated September 3rd, 2024? All those in favor? Okay, we have 4 affirmative, and the student member concurs.
The next one, I move to approve the open portion of the closed session minutes dated Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Okay, we're voting on the closed session open portion meeting minutes of September 3rd. All those in favor? All right, we have 4. They stand approved.
And the final one, I move to approve closed session minutes dated Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. And we'll move to the vote. All those in favor of approving the closed session minutes dated September 3rd, please raise your hand. Okay, so those are approved as well. 4 affirmative votes. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Okay, at this time, we'll have the first part of the superintendent's report, and we'll continue then after new business. So, Dr. Savine?
Good evening, President Williams, Vice President Stauffer, and members of the board. I'd like to begin this evening by recognizing some of our outstanding student athletes. These are actually our spring state champions from the 23-24 school year, but their state titles were earned before we could recognize them during the June business meeting. At this time, I would like to ask Eric Michael, our Supervisor of Athletics, Health, and Physical Education, to come forward as we honor these student athletes who were able to attend this evening.
Good evening. As Dr. Savine has said, I'm here to present our state champions from the spring sports season. We had a very successful season this spring. There are a lot of names on the list. Obviously, we're into the next school year. Several seniors are competing at colleges now, so they're not with us tonight. And there's also several of our athletes that are participating in fall sports tonight that aren't here. So we do have a lengthy list, but we do not have everyone here tonight with us. So I just want to say that up front. So tonight we're going to start with our unified track teams. Unified was divided into several divisions this year, and our Division 5 Unified Track Champions are from Clear Spring High School this year. To introduce the participants from Clear Spring High School, first up we have Alyssa Bentley, Hope Diller, Hazel Edwards, Grace English, Megan Mullins, Melissa Rockwell, Delaney Getz, head coach Chris Malott, and assistant coach Josh Edwards. Your Division 5 Unified State Champions.
Hey, Chris, we'll see if two of them didn't stick together.
Congratulations. Thank you, Coach.
It's a very exciting day for me when I go to one of these championship events, and two of our teams actually are champions that day. It's really exciting, really neat on a Friday to experience that and see the kids all excited. So our second unified track champions this year were for Division IV, and it's Williamsport High School. And our participants for Williamsport, Madison Cantner, Angel Ciampo, William Rexroad, Drake Spielman, Adam Starr, Jonathan Wilson, Zeke Wilson, Maddox Wood, Coach Josh Wilson, and Coach Paul Wood. Your Division IV Unified Track Champions, Williamsport. And next up, we have a first. Williamsport High School was the first team in Washington County history to win a team championship in tennis. And with us tonight from that team is Ahmad Foz, Elizabeth Warren, head coach Kate Paler, and assistant coach Stacy Toms. I do want to mention her name's on here. Lauren Toms was a participant on this team, and she was the 1A girls single champion. She's not here tonight because she's in college playing soccer. So we understand that. So your 1A state tennis champions, Williamsport High School.
Congratulations.
And then our last team tonight that we're going to introduce is the girls track team from Smithsburg High School. Again, if anybody knows anything about Smithsburg, there's a high participation rate of athletes out there, and most of those that are still in school are participating in games tonight back at the school. So with us tonight from Smithsburg, they were the 1A girls state track and field champions. And with us tonight is Alex Spithaller, Emmy Spithaller, head coach Adam Rudy, and assistant coach Brent Spithaller. I do want to recognize that the girls track team, they had the state championship 4x200 relay team, the 1A 4x400 relay team champions second straight year, and the 4x800 relay team champions third straight year. So quite a feat for these girls. 1A state champions, Smithsburg girls track.
Congratulations.
And last, we have some individuals that were state champions this year that we want to recognize. I do want to, I already mentioned the relay teams. Caroline Matthews is not here tonight. She's in college now running. She was the 1A 3200 girls champion from Boonesboro High School. And I already mentioned Lauren Toms for tennis. With us tonight, we have from Boonesboro High School, Hunter Lau, who was the boys 1A singles champion in tennis. This is Hunter's third straight championship. He will be a senior this year, so we're hoping he's back here for number 4 next year. And then also with us tonight from North Hagerstown is Lauren Stein. Lauren was the girls 3A 3,200 meter champion. And this was 2 years straight for Lauren in the 3,200 as champion. So we're hoping she's back here next year with a third straight. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
We have more student achievements to celebrate from the 2023-24 school year. Some students from Boyd J. Michael III Technical High School finished among the top 10 student groups in the country at the Skills USA National Competition this summer. I'll ask Dr. Gary Willow, our Associate Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, to join us for some more details regarding these student achievements.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, and Dr. Savine. The National Skills USA competition is a prestigious event that brings together students from across the United States to showcase their skills in various trade, technical, and leadership fields. Held annually, this event features more than 6,500 state champions from around the country competing head-to-head in 114 different competitions. The competition is part of the larger Skills USA organization, which emphasizes hand-on skills, teamwork, leadership, promoting excellence in career technical education. So I'm proud tonight to share that we had a couple of different teams finish in the top 10 across the country. Unfortunately, due to the timing of the meeting this evening, not all of some of our students have graduated, moved on, and we were not able to have them attend, but we still want to recognize their accomplishments. So number 8, again, 8 in the country, we had Bryce Abbott and Xavier Panagua, and they were for the drone program. Also number 8 in barbering, we had Trinity Caraway. 4th in the country for the Community Service Project, Diana Jimenez and Oakley Kendall. And number 3, again, top 3 bronze medal out of the entire United States for our EMT program, we had Morgan Saunders and Haley Taylor. So we want to recognize those students that not only won in Maryland, but then went on to represent us at the national level. So maybe a round of applause.
Thank you, Dr. Willow, and congratulations to all of our students on those achievements. That concludes this portion of my update.
Thank you, Dr. Savine. This time we'll have public comment. Before I begin calling people to come up to speak, I would like to read from Board Policy KD regarding procedures for business meetings. Each person wishing to address the Board of Education is encouraged but not required to sign up prior to the meeting and may address any topic concerning Washington County Public Schools except personnel or student matters which clearly identify an individual or individuals. Individuals wishing to address the board who do not sign up prior to the start of the meeting will be required to sign the log located at the speaker's table for the purpose of the meeting's minutes. Each speaker may speak for up to 5 minutes. Mr. Stauffer is our timekeeper this evening. Mr. Stauffer, would you like to explain how the timekeeping works?
When you have 30 seconds left, I'll hold up the caution symbol, and when your time is up, I'll hold up the stop sign.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. The first person I have signed up to speak is Caitlin Snodgrass. Is Ms. Snodgrass here? Good evening.
Stopwatch up here, whenever you're ready.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Snodgrass. Thank you for having me tonight. Thank you for your time. My name is Caitlin Snodgrass. I reside in Hagerstown, and I'm here to speak to you about unenrolled children. I'm so sorry. I have really bad anxiety.
Take a deep breath. We're all friends here. It'll be fine. Could you pull the microphone a little closer to you so we can hear? Thank you.
My name is Caitlin Snodgrass. I reside in Hagerstown, and I'm here to speak to you about unenrolled children in Washington County, with specific emphasis on elementary-age children. When a child does not have access to education, it is likely they also do not have access to food, and therefore, this should be a matter of urgent concern. 2 years ago, I was given the opportunity to temporarily care for 2 children, girl 3, boy 7. Their mother handed them over to me on a Wednesday afternoon with nothing but the clothes on their backs, no pull-ups, no toothbrushes, no extra clothes, nothing. I asked her what school I should take the boy to in the morning. It was late September at that point, 2 years ago. That is when I realized that he had not been to school all year. I didn't make her feel bad. I took them into my care for an unknown amount of time. It took a few days to figure out how I could get him back into school because I did not know his full legal name or his date of birth. I contacted Ruth Ann Monroe Primary because this was the most recent school that he had attended. The secretary quickly identified the boy and sent a PPW to meet with me on my lunch break so I could sign paperwork to get him back into school. Once enrolled back into ramps, I asked the school why no reports were being made to DSS regarding the boy's situation, and that is when I was informed that DSS does not take reports on truancy. I know we have a lot of homeless students in the county, but this boy has been so unstable that the PPW has had to personally transport him every single school year. When I re-enrolled him, I was adamant that I would need before and after care because I already transport my son to a different elementary school and I work full-time. I called the school and they had no openings, so what ended up happening, he had to stay at the hotel off a dual highway and be personally transported by the PPW. During this time, I kept him on the weekends and I made sure that both children always had clean clothes. A few weeks passed. One day I got off work to a text message from the PPW saying the mom lost the room again and they're walking across the street to Burger King now. Can you get the kids? I was appalled that he was dropped off after school on the curb with his mom, knowing they had no shelter in the winter. This is when I decided to fight for him, to put him in my son's school so I could keep him full-time. And one lady, I don't know if I'm allowed to say her name, but she works for the county. She was very helpful in getting him to switch over to my son's school. So when I was switching him over, that was when I became informed that the school never had medical records for him. He had been there for kindergarten and first grade and now second grade, and they never had medical records, never knew if he see a doctor or had been vaccinated. So I contacted the doctor, and I got him in to be seen because the doctor told me that he was in risk of losing his health insurance because he hadn't been seen in so long. At this appointment, the pediatrician submitted a DSS report listing multiple concerns. I was hopeful that this was going to bring about positive change. However, when I did not hear anything for a week, I reached out to the doctor who provided me the caseworker's number. I reached out to the caseworker, and that is when I was told, we've decided not to investigate because the mother is meeting all of the child's needs by allowing you to care for him. So because you take him to the doctor and to the dentist and to school, we think it's worth you having a conversation with the mother regarding these concerns. A couple months passed. When the time came to address these concerns, the mother quickly removed him from my care and switched his school back to ramps. About 2 weeks after that, she was arrested and sent to ERJ for 8 grams of fentanyl, and the boy was sent to live in a house in West Virginia with no running water or electricity. Ramps never contacted me about the boy falling off the radar. I'm the one who contacted them, and I said, hey, guess what? Guess why boy has not been at school? And this is why. I made a CPS report in West Virginia. By the time they got around to investigating it, the mother was already out and had dragged him back to Hagerstown. A couple months passed, another school year arrives. I received a text from the PPW at Ramps asking if the boy plans on attending school this year. I immediately commenced my investigation, and I received information they were located behind the eye doctor in Greencastle, Pennsylvania. So I drove there on a Saturday afternoon to look for him, and I was able to locate him. The mom had not been there in days, and there was no food in the apartment. The man who leased the apartment knew that the mom did not have positive feelings for me, but he was in desperate need of $50, so he agreed to allow me to take the boy for one day in exchange for cash. It was 3 p.m. when I found him, and he had not eaten all day. He could not remember the last time he had a bath, and he had no toothbrush at that apartment. The mom found out I had taken him, so she sent some people over at 11 p.m. to retrieve him from my address. When we found out his visit would be cut short, we both held each other and cried. This was the last time that I saw him. And if you will force me to stop, then I'll have to come back. But if I could please finish.
Please finish.
I sent him back with a bag full of food and a toothbrush and toothpaste. I shared the address with the PPW who placed a DSS report in PA. I made a secondary report. The DSS tried every single day to contact. However, all you have to do is just not answer the door. After 1 week of no results, I contacted Greencastle Police, and I learned that DSS had been trying to contact them every single day, but the report had been rescinded by the PPW at Ramps because a teacher at Ramps had seen boy in downtown. And so I sent the cop over to the address anyway, and sure enough, they had been legally evicted. There was papers on the door. Ever since this time, the boy has been in Hagerstown. However, I have seen very little effort from anyone other than myself trying to locate them. The boy has missed half of the second grade, all of the third grade, and he's now missing the fourth grade, and yet the mother has never been issued a warrant for truancy. And let me be clear, truancy is missing a lot of days. That is not what we are discussing here. We are discussing educational neglect. When a child does not have access to education, they likely do not have access to food. Over a year ago, I reached out to Senator Quarterman. I was pleased to promptly receive a reply. I informed Quarterman of the situation, and I told him DSS was no help because they don't take reports on truancies. Senator Quarterman responded by stating that he would have the executive director of Washington County DSS contact me, and when she did, she simply explained everything I already knew. They weren't able to help me. I asked the lady point blank, what if the boy is dead right now? How would anyone ever know? What would happen? And she was not able to answer that. It shakes me to my core that this entire situation could have been avoided had DSS investigated the report submitted by his doctor. I do not find that to be acceptable. When the school year rolled around, I did not hear anything from Ramps, so I contacted the PPW. He was able to confirm the boy was not in school. I decided to go to the city police department on a daily basis to get some movement on this. I filed a report with the police, which was sent to DSS, who simply sits it to the side and does nothing at all. DSS still does not have an active investigation on this situation. I began leaving voicemails and sending emails requesting a meeting with the chief of police to discuss the matter. I never received a response from those requests. However, the chief assigned a detective to the case, and when I learned of this, I cried for 2 hours at work last Friday because I was so happy that something might actually get done. My hopefulness was greatly diminished when I met with the detective because the first thing he said was, I almost completely forgot about our meeting. He went on to comment that these hotels are full of unenrolled children, but he assured me they were taking the matter seriously. The last thing he said to me was this, you know they aren't going to be happy with you showing up over there tomorrow talking about me coming to this meeting. Please understand that I do not mean to offend anyone. But I cannot continue to sit in silence while children in our community are suffering in unimaginable ways, and I'm almost done. I understand that not every little thing comes before this board, but I will safely assume that everyone sitting before me is well aware of this issue. Less than 1 year ago, a 6-year-old boy was found dead in an apartment on Locust. He was severely malnourished and not enrolled in school. Had any agency been looking for that child, his death could have been prevented. I know the current system is not sufficient, but we aren't even fully utilizing the resources we already have. For example, the PPW's boss didn't even know that the boy was back in Hagerstown until last week. She thought he was still out of state. But the school clearly knew that he was still in Hagerstown because they rescinded the report. It terrifies me that I've been working so hard for the past 2 years to save this kid's life. After contacting the schools, DSS, and the city police, I still do not see a solution here. I will not settle for the same old tired response of, well, the system is broken. It has always been and always will be. That is not acceptable. I would like to know how many elementary age children are unenrolled in Washington County. I understand We might not be aware of the children from out of state, but for the ones that we do know of, what is being done to locate them? Far more efforts could be made to mitigate the situation, supporting a bill to codify educational neglect, utilizing social media. There are many more things we can do, but what I won't settle for is complacency. To do nothing is to be complicit. I tried to not go into too much detail tonight. However, if my cries are not heard, I will have no choice but to attend more of these and share more details on my experience. But I hope that, to God, that this is the last time I have to come here because I have severe anxiety. Thank you so much for your time, and God bless all of you.
Thank you, Ms. Snodgrass. I appreciate it. Okay, I can make out clearly the first name, Christina. Is it Parkman, last name? Parkman? Good evening.
Good evening. So I sign my name here or no?
No, we have it here. Thank you.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready. Okay. Good evening, Washington County Public School Board and members. My name is Christina Parkman, and I am a resident of Washington County. My child is a student of Washington County Public Schools. I'm here today to speak on the negligence and ignorance of the school my child attended at Jonathan Hager Elementary. My son is a 12-year-old autistic and ADHD child who has an aide with him all day. I'm disgusted about some of the things that were going on at my son's previous school, which I am about to read to you. These are only things that have been going on within the last year, as I have been dealing with this issue since 2022 and have filed multiple complaints with the Washington County School Board and the school, as well as OCR, the Disability Act, and MSDE. I'm here to address a series of concerning incidents involving my son at Jonathan Hager Elementary School. It is with great distress that I bring to your attention the repeated incidences of bullying and inadequate responses from the school personnel. The first incident occurred on September the 20th, 2023, in the cafeteria where my son was subjected to relentless bullying throughout the day. Despite the presence of an aide, my son endured harassment from a group of children. The aide informed me via text message on the same day, expressing concern about the 3 students involved. Despite assurances from the assistant principal to investigate further, there was a notable delay in accessing surveillance footage, which, when eventually viewed, was not in its original format. Subsequently, on October 10th, 2023, another distressing incident occurred where my son was physically restrained by one of his aides and attempted to leave the school premises. Shockingly, upon my arrival and inquiry, the true extent of the altercation with the aide was initially withheld, indicative of a symptomatic failure of to communicate vital information to parents. Further escalating the situation on March 7, 2024, I was informed by the assistant principal of yet another incident involving my son, described as a fight with a single student, contrary of what my son's account was, of multiple assailants. This discrepancy persisted despite my direct inquiries and culminated in a confrontation with the assistant principal and law enforcement. Regretfully, these incidents on March 8th and April 4th, 2024, compounded the distress, receiving a pattern of inadequate supervision and response to my son's safety with the school environment. Moreover, the unwarranted scrutiny of my family's address by pupil personnel raises concerns of retaliation of raising legitimate grievances. It is evident that Jonathan Hager Elementary School has failed in the duty to provide a safe and inclusive environment for all students, including my son. As much, I am compelled to inform you of my intention to pursue legal recourse against both the school and the school district for negligence, discrimination, and failure to uphold the rights guaranteed to my son under the law, including the Individuals with Disability Education Act, IDEA. I implore you to take immediate and decisive action to rectify these systematic failures and ensure the safety and well-being of all students entrusted in your care. I also was in the office today for another complaint about my son, and I am going to continue to pursue legal action. I'm sure you all are aware of what has been going on with my son. I have filed multiple complaints. You're looking at me like you don't know. I had a phone call that was given right before I was to come to the meeting tonight, which I told you guys that I was going to be at this meeting tonight. I had a call kind of like trying to get me not to come here tonight. So I will be at another meeting because this is not the only thing that I have to say about what's going on with my son. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parkman. Carol Mallon.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Sovine, and members of the Board of Education. I am Carol Mowen, President of the Washington County Teachers Association. As you deliberate about budget priorities this evening, I am applauding your effort to align those priorities to the 4 key areas of the strategic plan. Those are culture, safety and wellness, student success, access and opportunity, and community engagement. In recent weeks, safety concerns related to criminal activity in Hagerstown have appeared at the top of several lists. As you know, many research studies show that one of the best ways, if not the best way, to reduce crime in the community is to increase funding for education. This is no surprise. Investing in our students and schools enables students to achieve their fullest potential as adults. Conversely, without adequate funding, it's difficult to provide the resources necessary to do the job. As you consider your budget priorities tonight and throughout the FY 2026 budget season, I hope that you will consider NEA's recommendations for improving school culture, safety, and wellness, and work with county leaders so that the school district's budget can be fully funded. NEA's list includes the following: create smaller class sizes, create a positive school climate, including restorative practices and support for social and emotional competencies, hire more specialized instructional support personnel, such as social workers, BCBAs, nurses, and mental health professionals, practice student drills that are mindfully conducted to minimize student and staff trauma as much as possible, train staff in restorative justice, de-escalation tactics, racial justice, cultural competency, crisis intervention practices, and anti-bias, decrease over-reliance by educators on referrals to law enforcement, develop and engage in authentic, broad partnerships with parents and community groups, ensure emergency planning and other responses are trauma-informed, and establish methods to identify students with serious violence-related potential and to create appropriate ways to inform educators. This is not NEA's entire list, and those items alone will not create the culture, safety, and wellness and the other priorities included in the strategic plan, but it's a good start. I further recommend that you work to fund transportation services to better meet the needs of students and their families. To that end, I urge you to consider how allocations to the transportation budget can address that priority to improve access and opportunity for all students. As you know, chronic absenteeism impacts students' well-being and achievement levels. One barrier in this area is the lack of transportation within the 1 mile to 1.5 mile area for our elementary, middle, and high school students. We need a solution to this problem, either in a revision to local policy or a change in state regulations, or both. Parents want to partner with schools to do what's best for students, and many are frustrated that what appears to be the simplest fix, adding buses and routes, is so costly and complicated as to not be considered possible. In addition to a change in school transportation areas, We need after-school programs with bus transportation home so that students at all school levels can be engaged after the school day in extracurriculars that are not currently available if students don't have transportation home. This is an issue of equity and opportunity that is aligned clearly with the strategic plan. Not only do we need the buses and drivers to accomplish both of these goals, we need the second transportation router position in the transportation office to make up the routes and update them as needed. By the way, at the beginning of this school year, we heard from some of our members who are special education teachers that some of their students missed their first days of school because the buses had to be rerouted due to late registrations and other factors. If you had been able to fund that second router position last year, those students may have had a stronger start this year. WCTA is doing what we can to help our members and schools meet the needs of students and families. For example, we are offering a free training from the Maryland State Education Association Center for Education Policy and Practice on trauma, SEL, and verbal de-escalation to our members on October 8th from 6 to 8 p.m. so that they can implement research-based strategies when students are dysregulated. We've also launched a free local advocacy training session for parents and community members to learn more about how public meetings work. I've led 2 sessions so far, and the next session is Tuesday, September 24th from 6 to 8 online. Info and registration can be found at the WCTA website. And finally, we are continuing to advocate for adequate funding from local government officials by attending meetings and speaking up on behalf of the needs of students and staff. It is a tall order to create school environments that all our students deserve. I believe it can happen if we work with parents and community leaders to achieve it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mallon. Okay, that concludes the list of those who have signed up in advance. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Ethan Lowen. I really didn't have anything planned to say this evening, but listening to the speakers, there's a few things that really come out. So obviously the first 2 speakers in particular, heartbreaking situations. And I guess what I would ask is, with the behavior issues, especially when now that there have been multiple parents speaking about how with autism and the problems that's created, the bullying, and it doesn't stop, right? Obviously, many parents have talked about bullying in general, but particularly with the autism. One of the things that comes to mind, and some other parents were asking me about this literally just last week. I mean, purely out of coincidence, but what happened to special ed classes? You know, when I was dealing with my learning disability, I was severely dyslexic as a child. You know, I went to special ed, and I was taken out of class, regular class, went to special ed. It worked really well, and it also from behavior issues. And then later on in school, when I also had behavior issues, I was taken out of class, went to a different place, and my behavior issues went really well. And I know we have the Antietam Academy, and the Antietam Academy is not being utilized at all. And that is meant for children with behavior issues. Like, why are we doing this? And what it really brings to mind is with what the teachers union, the president of the teachers union, was saying just a few minutes ago, is that when you look at the gist of it, about how things were done before, when education standards were higher, behavior issues were not really an issue, and the difference with now, when behavior issues are through the roof because of really just unrestrained, misbehaving students allowed to continue to be unrestrained, and education standards that keep dropping. One of the things is that it's about the budget. You see that the policies of today are really all about continuing to increase the budget. It's almost as if the policies don't have a solution. I mean, if we know that separating children that have learning disabilities, whether autism, et cetera, works out very well for them and for the general student body, why would we not do that? If we know that doing the same with behavioral issues and bullies, chronically violent students, why would we not do that? with the busing issue that was mentioned by the teachers union just a few minutes ago, that's as a result. A call from the NAACP, in particular locally, wants to take Salem Avenue and basically reduce it from a mile busing to half a mile busing. And what's interesting is that the NAACP said we're going to have a solution, and they called a meeting. And really what the solution was an officer of the teachers union just saying, all right, come to the school board and tell them a bigger budget for busing. However, I stayed and just spoke to the mothers of the NAACP afterwards. That's not what they're asking for. They're not asking for that at all. What they're saying is that as the children walk to and from school, that the number of homeless drug addicts that are on the walk, that's what's bothering them. It's not the kids walking. That's what's bothering them. It's the potential violence. And busing the kids doesn't get to any root causes. Just like everything else we're talking about, just like what these parents that spoke earlier this evening are talking about. They're talking about root causes. Well, that's what the NAACP parents are talking about as well. The other thing is Salem Avenue in particular has a very, very early start time. And even though the YMCA does cover early starts, for some parents it is expensive. And they would like it if there was perhaps some kind of a means testing. So that parents have to pay, but something that is affordable based upon not so much a certain percentage of their income, a very basic solution that actually has a real solution, like a real end to the expense, gets at the root cause. The other thing is that if parents just still don't send their kids to school, they want consequences. They want truancy consequences. I said, well, I believe there's a $50 fine to parents if they don't. That's not going to do anything. It's not going to make a difference. You see, parents want solutions, and yet the system has changed where it's designed to have endless budget requirements that never, the actual quote solutions never get to the solution. It's just more money being spent so that next year, we need a huge budget, but the solutions have always been there. And so we just need not just common sense, but real compassion, not the fake compassion that basically is just a justification to say, well, let's do this because it sounds good, but there's no real solution. Solutions, real solutions. Like the parents that came here 3 years ago, under the group Patriot Parents. Well, guess what? Those mothers said the exact same thing that the NAACP mother said. There's no difference. So, solutions. We've had them. You know what they are, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowen. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Good evening.
How you doing? I notice Linda's not here. Tell her that I miss her. Okay, so before I start my public comment, I would like to take a moment of silence in memory of that young teenage boy that Washington County Commissioner Jeff Klein killed and is completely unrepentant about. May he find Alcoholics Anonymous one day. Okay. Sorry, what?
Your time already started.
Yeah, I get that. Why are you telling me that, Stan? You trying to get me to hurry the fuck up? All going to be about you now. It was going to be about Melissa. I could just change the name. Okay, so this is my son. He's super happy. He's going to Maryland School for the Deaf. I have no idea why he's dressed up like Woody the Cowboy. His mother she does her own thing. So anyway, he's super happy because he's not going to get beat up or bullied on or picked on like that autistic kid that the lady before me was just talking about, because this kid's going to Maryland School for the Deaf like he should have been back in January, but you delayed it, of course, because you wanted to keep extra funding in your budget. Let him get beat up at Bester Elementary. The reason why the disabled kids and the other kids are getting bullied and picked on and why I'm getting constantly hit up by parents at Clear Spring Middle School is because Melissa Williams has a policy where you don't remove the bad kids from school, you don't discipline them, you let them run wild at Clear Spring Middle School and other schools, you let them beat up my disabled son at the Engage program where he was at Bester Elementary, because you don't want the bad kids who are stabbing kids in the ear with pencils to not get the same quality education that the other children are getting. You have what's called a duty of care. When a kid gets on a WCPS school bus, you are legally responsible. When a kid goes to a WCPS facility, their safety is supposed to be insured by WCPS. And what that autistic mother was just talking about that her kid was going through is horrible. It's what my kid went through. So you allow the kids to get beat up. You allow them to get stabbed in the ear with a pencil. You then send the kids right back to class. You don't suspend them. You don't give them detention. Antietam School for the Juvenile Delinquents is half empty because your policies are to simply ignore the violence, ignore the kids that act up, ignore the vaping and drug use in the bathrooms in the high schools. Kids are afraid to go to the bathroom in South High because they're afraid they're going to get beat up or jumped, whatever you want to call it, while they're in the bathroom because the bad kids hang out in there and the teachers don't do anything about it because they're not allowed to. It's not the teacher's fault. The next thing I wanted to talk about is, I'm actually going to be pretty short this evening, is the Democrats endorsed Melissa Williams and Stan Stauffer, who claim to be staunch Republicans. Just think about that for a second. The Democrats came out and endorsed Stan Stauffer, Melissa Williams, Peter Bickford, and Robin Merchant Spickler, which is kind of funny. Here's what their little Apple ballot circular looks like that's going around. It's got all their faces on it. I want to just point out one thing briefly. When I was out here in August, at the August meeting, I spoke to, I believe it was Linda Murray, the lady, Linda, the lady over there, her daughter, about a report. She said that Darrell Evans had said he didn't bother to actually stop by the Marshall Street School because those kids were a bunch of retards. So I thought that to be just completely stupid. It's not, I don't believe that guy said that, but it was clearly, obviously meant to get me to not support or like Darrell Evans and to support the people who are for re-election that are, associated with Linda. Well, it's funny because the exact same claim was made by a lady called April Crowhair. She made the exact same claim, but now it's not about Darrell Evans. Now it's about everyone that the teachers union didn't endorse on this little flyer here. So right here, these people didn't make the saying about all the kids at that school being retards, the disabled kids. Now she's saying, this is a totally separate person using the same identical story, is saying that it's every single candidate besides the people the teachers union support. The funny thing about it is, Melissa, you can't go around using your proxies to wage a negative campaign against your political enemies during an election and then thank them for doing it on Facebook. Here's the post of you saying thank you to her for her continued support. Right after, she made this despicable post basically saying Ashley and a few others are potential people that made this horrible statement. I don't think anyone running for school board has ever called a disabled kid a retard. I think that's ridiculous that you're spreading misinformation through your proxies. And honestly, Melissa Williams and Stan, you're horrible people. I hate you both. I hope you get voted out this November. You guys are in charge of the Board of Ed, so all the problems that you have at the board, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Bottom line, not going to happen. They say that victory has 1,000 fathers and defeat is an orphan. That's the way you run things. Anytime there's something good, you guys take the credit for it. Anytime there's something bad, you have no control over the day-to-day operations of the school system. But you do. Again, Melissa and Stan must get canned. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. You have a great evening as well.
God bless you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
My name's Amy Gillette. I've had 2 children in the school system here. I just wanted to comment that we've had great success. Our daughter is at home now, who's older with autism, who went through the school system here. She went to North High and then on to working her first job. She ran the camera at the TV station when Peter Bickford was there. She was always with her sister, who was close in age, who helped her throughout the process so she could remain in regular classes and participate in life. Because of that, she was able to take classes where she normally would have been pulled out for special ed and missing big chunks of knowledge, like in history, and that would affect your conversation skills because you just wouldn't have that experience interacting with kids. I know because I too have a disability of severe dyslexia, learning disability, and spectrum issues. And it was common when I was in school to keep us in special ed in a room to the side. And you don't think when we came out of that room and went on the school bus or went to our evangelical Christian church on Sunday that the kids didn't make fun of us. I am so thankful for the schools that we experienced in Las Vegas, Nevada, when we started with the hearing impairment program there for my daughter, and all through Montgomery County and then Washington County. Sure, there were many difficulties at Washington County. There was a problem in the arts program because there was somebody else who had issues that we didn't realize at the time, and that's why he was acting out, and it was distracting my daughter. And at that time, we were able to convince her to take some other classes at HCC because you have so many options through the school system. My other daughter at Tech also found there were a couple things that she wasn't jiving with, and she set up an internship, and she was commuting to Washington on the commuter bus and getting high school credit. And she has a fabulous job, and it's because Washington County worked with her so she could bypass some of the stresses at Tech because she was an extremely bright student, but she had to be motivated to try different things, and I'm so glad for that. And granted, the one child that has significant disabilities, she still struggles now that she's an adult, and we work with her. But I wouldn't have kept her in a private room in the school system for anything. I know the amount of history and common sense that I lacked being pulled into a contained classroom. People thought I was like an idiot. I ended up going to college, working as a social worker. I had several clients at the Marshall School. And I did a lot of programming on working with kids in your school system to get, who were in special ed, to get them into also taking courses at HCC and working with them to go to the colleges that support people with disabilities. There's so many things out there for us, and I'm thankful my employer gives me the time to process so that I can help kids that have had situations like mine and do normal things like my girls were able to. They worked with Peter Bickford, and they felt like, wow, it's normal, I'm here, and you know, and nobody knows, and they felt good about themselves, even though, you know, they didn't get paid much, but it was the sense of community. Thank you. And I wasn't going to speak tonight, but just having special ed in my blood, I just couldn't go home and live with myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gillette. We appreciate that. Is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening? No? Okay. This time we'll have board member response to public comment. Colleagues, is there any response?
Yeah, I'll respond. I guess there's a lot to unpack there, to say the least. Things I didn't know. But in all seriousness, Ms. Snodgrass, this is an issue that we have heard about, we do know about, and there's actually something on the agenda that I don't know that it is the fix. Quite honestly, I don't know what the fix is. So there is something on the agenda that we will be discussing tonight. But it is a sad situation. I appreciate your care and concern. There aren't many people out there willing to do that stuff. So I for one, appreciate it. And like I said, I don't know what we as a board can do. I don't know what's in our authority. If you have any suggestions, I'm more than happy to hear them. But, you know, sometimes there's only so much we can do. And hopefully what we do and what other organizations are doing can kind of collectively help. So I thank you for your work.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Thank you to all who spoke this evening. We have no old business this evening, so we'll move directly to new business. And the first item under new business is policy. So this board will be considering policy to adopt. The first reading is proposed changes to policy GCBDA, family and medical leave.
The Policy Committee reviewed policy GCBDA at its public work sessions on August 8th and 29th, 2024 at staff's request. The committee is recommending several changes to the policy, including updates to the definition section in response to changes of federal law. In addition, the committee is recommending several updates to the policy statement and procedures section of the policy in order to provide more details on eligibility and length of family medical leave available for employees. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy GCBDA at this time.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion, please?
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy GCBDA entitled Family and Medical Leave.
Your second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Any questions, any discussion? Okay, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy GCBDA entitled Family and Medical Leave. All those in favor? We have 4 affirmative and the student member concurs. So we have an approved first read.
Abstention or something? You said 4? Any affirmative?
I'm sorry. 5. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Thank you. Okay. Next up is the first reading of proposed changes to policy GCF, employee orientation.
The Policy Committee reviewed policy GCF at its public work sessions on August 8th and 29th, 2024, at staff's request. The committee is recommending the policy be placed in the proper format. The committee is recommending several stylistic changes to the policy and new language authorizing the superintendent to promulgate an administrative regulation to implement the policy. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy GCF at this time.
Thank you. Is there a motion, please?
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy GCF entitled Employee Orientation.
Thank you. Mr. Stauffer, is there a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Any questions, any discussion? We'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy GCF entitled Employee Orientation. All those in favor? Okay, we have 5 affirmative and the student member concurs. Next, we have first reading of proposed changes to policy DBK, Budget Transfer Authority.
I think we moved ahead.
Oh, I did?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
DH.
Oh, okay. Backing up, first read to rescind policy DH, bonded employees and officers.
The Policy Committee reviewed policy DH at its public work session on August 29th, 2024 at staff's request. Staff recommended the rescission of the policy because the bonding of the superintendent and any other employee who handles funds is a requirement of the Education Article 6-109. The committee agreed with staff's recommendation. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading to rescind policy DH.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion, please?
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading to rescind policy DH entitled Bonded Employees and Officers.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Any questions, any discussion? All right, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the first reading of the rescission policy DH entitled Bonded Employees and Officers. All those in favor? All right, we have 5 affirmative votes. Student member concurs. That motion passes. And then this one is first reading of proposed changes to policy DBK, Budget Transfer Authority.
The Policy Committee reviewed policy DBK at its public work session on August 29th, 2024 at staff's request. The committee is recommending the proposed changes to the policy requested by staff. The changes include identifying what staff may request budget transfers and when they may do so, that department leaders may only adjust the value of accounts within their control, and that transfers must be covered by reducing expenses in another account. The policy changes also include clarifying the transfers of funds within categories will be submitted to the Board of Education prior to submission to the Board of County Commissioners, and transfers of funds between categories will be approved by the Board of Education.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram.
The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy DBK.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion, please?
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading with proposed changes to policy DBK entitled Budget Transfer Authority.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Is there a second, please? Second. Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Do you have any questions, any discussion? We move to the vote. We're voting to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy DBK entitled Budget Transfer Authority. All those in favor? All right, we have 5 affirmatives. Student member concurs. So we have an approved first read. Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Our next agenda item is this evening's consent agenda. We have Mr. Scott Bakewell, our Supervisor of Purchasing here.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Sovine. Tonight I have 7 items for your review. The Purchasing Review Committee did review these items and they are being recommended for approval, and staff is available if you have any additional questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion, please?
Madam President, I move to approve the awards, renewals, and procurements for Microsoft Unified Support Services to Microsoft Corporation at a cost of $127,550. Unit price contract for asbestos abatement renewal to Baxter Environmental Group, Inc., Boggs Environmental Consultant, Inc., Bristol Environmental, Inc., and Retro Environmental, Inc. at the rates listed. Unit price contract for concrete installation and repair renewal to Chuck Harrell Home Construction, Inc. and Huntsberry Brothers, Inc. at unit prices. Unit price contract for asphalt installation and repair renewal to Huntsberry Brothers, Inc. at unit prices. Sphero Classroom Robotics products to Sphero, Inc. at a cost of $88,261.56. Classroom drone and robotics products to B&H Photo and Electronics at a cost of $18,015.80, and Drone Blocks LLC at a cost of $69,073. Toolkit Technologies Classroom Robotics products to Toolkit Technologies, Inc. at a cost of $64,885. Budgeting software to Carasoft Technology Corporation at a 20-month cost of $274,768.33. And Family Housing Navigator support for homeless children and youth extension to Horizon Goodwill Industries at a cost not to exceed $228,500.
Second to Mr. Bickford's motion. Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. We have questions? Any discussion?
Yeah, the only question I have, I guess it's about items number 5, 6, and 7, essentially what we just talked about, how great the kids are doing in their national programs there with the robotics, the drones, and the classroom robotics products there. Are we replacing stuff each year with this? Is there new software? It just seems like we kind of do this every year, and this is $240,000. So just kind of want to get an idea of, are we replacing, upgrading?
A little of both. And so, good evening again, board members, President Williams. Mr. Evans, your question, really the answer is both. So if you think back to our August work session when we presented publicly, Mr. Perry, Dr. Andrews, and myself, we took you through the K through 12 continuum around robotics. And what you're referring to, a lot of our past practices have been at the elementary school. And Mr. Perry outlined a vision for using Perkins funding for 6th through 8th grade, but then to begin to look at what we're really specializing in within the CTE programs as we get to high school. So in some ways, the Spiros have been things that you are spot on, we've purchased before, but as you look through the 6 through 8 in particular, now ensuring that all of our tech ed students have access in middle school, and then they get much more specialized in high school. As computer science, drone technology, robotics, as that expands, we're updating our programs. It is a large investment, but I would also remind that we are using our annual Perkins grant funding to offset most of that cost.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Stan?
The number 9 item, the Family Housing Navigator support for homeless children and youth. when I saw this, it occurred to me that when I went to school, and in fact, when I taught for many, many years, I never knew of any children in my classes who were homeless, and yet that is the status in America today for whatever reasons and so forth. And Dr. Savine, could we have a staff member address this and explain a little bit more about it to the public?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. I'll ask, I believe Mr. Jacoby is in the back. I'll ask him to come forward and to speak to the homeless matter.
Good evening. Yeah, so we had some grant funding last school year that we started to utilize to provide an additional layer of support to not only our homeless youth, but also to families of our homeless youth. So what we had seen over the last several years was with the cost of housing and rents going up in our community, and the increased number of youth that were homeless without stable housing, we saw a need to utilize some of these grant funds to have a community agency work with the homeless youth and also with their families, primarily for connecting them with stable housing, but they also do other types of case management with the families. So if they also have food insecurities, if they need connections to like mental health services or substance abuse services, they also work with the families on those types of referrals as well. So we have, this past school year, we had about 900 students at some point during the school year that were identified as homeless. And that is a sharp increase as compared to even 2 or 3 years ago. So we are unfortunately seeing an increased number of youth that are without stable housing. Some are double housed, so they're living with other families. But we do actually have some youth that are living in our parks in campers throughout our community. So we're doing what we can do, not only using resources from the general fund, but also from different grants to really make sure that we're providing the resources that we can to the students and to their families.
And this is also part of the wraparound services and so forth. And
Absolutely.
And all that,
Mm-hmm.
which school systems years ago never had to deal with.
Anyone else have a question? I'm going to go to the vote. We're voting to approve the consent agenda, the awards, renewals, and procurements as presented by Mr. Bickford, seconded by Dr. Zettmeyer. All those in favor? All right, we have 5 affirmative. Student member concurs. Consent agenda. Our next item to consider is the State and Local Capital Improvement Program, known as the SIP, for fiscal years 2026 through 2031. Mr. Prue, our Chief Operating Officer, and Mr. Robert Rollins, our Director of Facilities. Good evening.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, members of the board, Dr. Savine. Mr. Rollins and I are here this evening to present to you the State and Local Capital Improvement Program. As a reminder, this is sort of the third, well, I'll call it the second leg that we see over the course of a calendar year of our trilogy of books within the facilities team. So you start in the spring with your educational facilities master plan that outlines what's going on in the community with enrollment, with housing, and with the overall scoring of our facilities. That moves into the CIP, the Capital Improvement Program, in September. And then we will be back in about a month to talk about the comprehensive maintenance plan, how then we continue to maintain those facilities. This plan, of course, then aligns with the 2024 Educational Facilities Master Plan. It requests local planning and construction funding approvals for the Downsville Pike Elementary School, as we've been talking about now for about 2 years. And you've seen several design approvals on over the last 6 months. Of course, for the public, that's a school that is intended to go here on our property at the Center for Education Services out in the front, right along Downsville Pike, and intends to close Hickory and Fountain Rock Elementary Schools and merge those two together. We continue to address the systemic needs we have, things like roofs, boilers, chillers, electrical systems, and we identify future large capital projects and the costs for our educational needs in future programs. For the Downsville Pike project, we propose to use our Built to Learn Act funding from, I believe that was 2019, to fund part of the elementary school. About $19 million is coming forward from the Built to Learn Act. Every summer, the Interagency Commission on School Construction reviews the cost per square foot for school construction that's been received as competitive bids in the prior year. So we've utilized the state cost of $416 comparatively to what was utilized in the prior year, which was $404. This is the value that the state will contribute their 79% of construction costs towards. So we utilize the changing number until the point that we start receiving funding. Then we lock in that number to make sure that we maximize the funding that we can receive from the state government for school construction. Of course, we follow the state's guidelines and procedures. And estimated budgets for all the projects you're going to see tonight are in today's dollars, and we update those as new information comes forward prior to the final submission and request for funding from the state. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Mr. Rollins to walk you through this year's plan.
Okay, so for FY26, the bulk of the funding request is for the Downsville Pike Elementary School. You can see $23 million in requests. As Jeff stated, some's coming from the Built to Learn Act funding. Some of the money is coming from the state CIP, and about $8.5 million from the local CIP. We also were requesting 5 more systemic projects. You can see the list there. So the total request for FY26 is just around $30 million, with about a third of that, $10 million, coming from local government.
I might interject quick. You may remember, I believe it was 2 years ago, the governor provided upwards of $400 million for state capital improvement for schools. At that time, the Interagency Commission went back to LEAs and said, there's going to be additional funding available if you want to increase your CIP request, and we did that. Subsequent to that now, knowing that our traditional allocation from the state is in the $8.5 million range, we've inflated our initial request because there's a chance that the state won't come back in future years and say, do you have more requests? So we try to put that in front of you to have a more inflated request than we think the state will actually provide, so that we're prepared if the governor were to provide more money in his FY26 budget.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. We do budget just slightly a little heavy just for those reasons that Mr. Prue stated. I wanted to point out that based on the cost per square foot increase that Mr. Prue went over, it was about a 3% increase in construction cost per square foot. So the budget for the entire Downsville project has also gone up. We've managed to not go by the 3% increase that the state had in that. We've increased the budget by about 2% because we're going to only take the state funding, and we're going to take the local funding share of that increase out of contingencies we have in the project budget. It's a little bit of a risk, but we think we can make that happen. And so we're softening the blow of the increased construction cost for the local government while taking the money that the state will give us. Just the overall funding for the Downsville Pike Elementary School, the $51 million, we're going to break it out. Our cash flow is as follows on this chart. Of course, we received $1.5 million in 24 from the county commissioners. That's paying for the design of the project. In 26, what we just put before you, the $23 million. In 27, we'll ask for an almost identical amount, and then we'll round out the funding in 28 from BTL and local sources.
And you may recall that a few years back, the county allocated $4 million already to this project. So $4 million is already set aside in the state's in the county's capital reserve fund for this project, which they can choose to utilize that, whether it's in 26 or 27, wherever they want to utilize those funds. But they've already set $4 million aside.
Following FY26, we do have systemic project requests in every year's requests. You can see the total of $46 million. This constitutes about 7 projects, 2 boiler replacements, 2 roof replacements, and 3 HVAC replacements. The HVAC replacements themselves are very expensive. It's for 3 of our middle schools, one at Springfield, Northern, and Middle and Western Heights Middle, and those projects each are right around $10 million apiece. But those schools are reaching 50 years in age. We don't have any kind of sign that they're going to be replaced anytime soon, so we think it's prudent on those 3 schools to go ahead and replace the HVAC at this point in time. And there'll be more to follow in the out years, and this is where we are right now on systemics. Also in the plan are the future large capital projects, replacement elementary school 2 and 3. We've talked about these during the EFMP. So they're loaded into the project when you see the total request. The replacement elementary school number 2 would open in school year 29-30, and school number 3 would open in school year 32-33. So they're out there a bit, but they're coming up faster than you think. Finally, just the total funding request of all the projects, 26 through 31. You can see the numbers that we've talked about. Total request of almost $179 million. About 1/3 of that would come from local coffers, with the rest of it coming from the state. And with that, we can answer any questions you have, and of course, we're looking for your approval of the plan.
Is there a motion, please?
President Williams, I move to approve the state and local FY 2026 Capital Improvement Program Plan.
Thank you, Dr. Zahar. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any questions, any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the state and local fiscal year 2026 Capital Improvement Plan, known as the SIP. All those in favor? We have 5 affirmative. Student member concurs, so we have an approved SIP. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, next up on our agenda is the fiscal year 2026 budget priorities. Dr. Savine and Mr. Prue and Mr. Eric Sisler, our Executive Director of Finance, presenting.
Thank you, President Williams and members of the board. As you likely recall, wasn't too long ago, September the 3rd, we engaged the board in a work session, in particular providing a review of achievements in this current fiscal year, as well as reviewed recommended priorities of the board for this upcoming budget cycle. You see that in front of you for your review. It was recommendation of staff. There was consensus and agreement from the board on that, as well as some targeted initiatives. I'll yield to Mr. Prue and Mr. Sisler to highlight some of those items.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. Board members, we did take some time 2 weeks ago to kind of crosswalk what were the FY25 priority goals, to kind of show what those goals would look like, how the funding allocations would align under the new strategic plan. I believe the board reached consensus to align initiatives to the strategic plan, focusing on culture, safety, and wellness as the #1 priority, followed by student success, access and opportunity, and community engagement. And of course, we talked a little bit about community engagement really being the work that we do and not necessarily requiring large influxes of budgetary funds. And I think we also shared, for the board's knowledge, that when we had our larger community meeting with our consultant and talked about really where the school system was, there was alignment amongst all the members of the community, 70 or 80 folks in attendance that night at South High, that culture, safety, and wellness has to be right before students are ready and engaged for academic success. So I think your consensus on that recommendation aligns with what the community thought that evening, just this past, I guess it was April or May. In terms of the targeted strategies, there was a handful of items that we talked about that were items that had been presented as part of the superintendent's draft budget in January of this year, but had to be removed through the budget process. That was a transition of approximately 44 staff, a mix of support personnel administrators that are currently working 10-month assignments over to 12-month assignments to provide better service to our community throughout the summer months and be more prepared for the start of the school year. I think, reached consensus on adding an additional transportation router to spread the load that's currently done by one person. And we talked about things like that we hand route every pre-K student to make sure they're on the right route, getting on the right bus, being assigned at the right time. The amount of movement we have between programs with our special ed students. We just talked about homelessness and the movement and the transient nature of our homeless population and how it's grown. I think Mr. Jacoby said over 900 families in homelessness at some point last year. We talked, I think, at length about our Reading Apprentice program, and we shared that we do have a grant that's been brought forward by MSD for one more year to extend that program. That is, our apprentices for reading is something that we will have to get into the general fund. We talked about growth in that program, potentially more than 35, and or also adding math tutors to the program for our elementary students. And we also had a good discussion on school safety and growing our school safety and security assistance, but to be clear, not in lieu of our SROs, but in addition to maintaining and potentially growing SROs over time when our local police agencies have the manpower to be able to grow with us. So that, I believe, is where the board lied in terms of their consensus for the work session. And staff is happy to answer any questions you have on these initiatives.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. Is there a motion, please?
Madam President, move to approve the FY 2026 budget priorities.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Questions? Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to kind of reiterate what I said a couple weeks ago. You know, I think all these items that we have on the list are very reasonable requests, but I don't think we're hitting the mark with the priorities. I would hope that my fellow colleagues here reconsider this. You know, 44 staff going from 11-month to 12-month. I don't see how that does anything to align to the strategic plan other than just give, 44 people a raise. I think we should be using that money first to go and rehire the elementary school teachers that we cut out of the budget for this year. And, I think the strategic plan is great, but we also need to maintain fiscal responsibility. And I think we need to go back to funding the OPEB liability, and I think we need to also make it a priority to go and make sure that we rebuild up the resource pool that we reduced last year as well.
I guess what my question would be to my colleagues is, are we viewing these as while we're calling them targeted initiatives, are we saying that we have we're going to not make changes or additions or that these will be the targeted initiatives for this upcoming budget?
In other words, there's no chance that these could not end up in the budget, is what you're saying.
Well, I'm saying that there could not be any additions to these or changes to these.
Mrs.
I
Williams,
just want to get an understanding of what our collective understanding is, knowing that we have work sessions
Sure.
going forward before we have a draft budget.
If it's helpful for the board, I think as I look at these, and I know finance staff is here in the room, and Mr. Sisler as well, thinking about these items, you probably have somewhere ballpark of about $2 to $2.3 million of budget exposure here with these items. there are always other items, you know, that we're gonna plan for a resource pool, which of course is the amount of money that is then allocated, set aside to provide staff raises from one year to the next. We likely will have a premium insurance increase because that's just where medical inflation is. There may be other initiatives, other items as we meet with staff and department heads over the next month or so. There'll be other things that will rise to the top. But I do believe when I think about some of the budget outlook and some of the budget forecasting that we've already begun to do for FY26, that the board probably is going to have somewhere between $13 and $15 million in new income for FY26, based on trends we're seeing with enrollment, changes in allocation per student that are required by the blueprint. So I think you'll have other things here. I think these are just things that the board raised as items that potentially they reach consensus on being committed to. But it doesn't mean to me that these are dead set, these are the items you want. And I think through the budget process, you know, through the superintendent's eye as he presents his draft budget, through the board's vision as they get through the spring, as you take on the draft, I don't think there's anything to me that would say that you couldn't change those, but the board may have a different viewpoint.
If I may, President Williams, my reflection on the work session was the board was in consensus, and these targeted areas were kind of the minimums. As Mr. Prue referenced, I believe you know, it's been a priority of this board to always keep salaries, competitive salaries as a priority. Certainly, while it's not here on the list, we anticipate as we work with our various units and other groups, that would be something that would be in the superintendent's recommended draft budget. But I see this really as the discussion was really targeting at the minimum these initiatives and making sure, providing clear direction to the superintendent that this would be a part of that initial draft proposed budget to the board. Certainly it's the board's prerogative to make any adjustments and shifts of the recommended budget.
Thank you for that clarification.
I recall during our work session, Dr. Savine, you saying that this is going to be your guide that you focus the budget around. And so if we go and do this, to me that says that this is in there. Yes, maybe we can add stuff, but we wouldn't be able to remove it. And that's the point I was trying to make. If these are the absolute priorities that is our first vote, I really think we're missing the mark here. You know, we cut a lot of stuff from our budget that I think reduces our fiscal responsibility, and it's great to go and pay staff a little bit more for moving them 11 month to 12 month. I'm sure that gives them more vacation time. The amount of extra work they would put in, I can't imagine would be that much different. So to me, it sounds like it's more of a raise than, you know, going and, you know, achieving some of those strategic initiatives. And, you know, we just heard from the union president, you know, asking to lower class sizes, and we removed 5 teachers from our budget last year, and here's an opportunity that's probably a very comparable cost, the 44 staff going from 11 month to 12 month, compared to adding teachers into the classroom and really going and helping that cultural safety and wellness initiative. And I just hope that we can reconsider if this is what we're saying our initial priorities are. I think we're missing the mark, and I would hope that we can reconsider that.
President Williams, to Mr. Evans' point, and thank you, Mr. Evans, for raising the point regarding contingency positions. Part of the discussion, and we are in agreement that future budgets need to have a minimum contingency of teachers K through 12 that provides flexibility as we have pupil-teacher ratios that may be higher than preferred. It gives us the latitude to do so. As I mentioned, what we have on this list that Mr. Prue just referenced is the minimum. I believe that those items that are referenced there are right around the $2 million mark, and as Mr. Prue referenced, we're anticipating 12 to, I believe, 13 million more So certainly this discussion and also considering the need for a salary, a meaningful salary initiative, that would be a priority of the superintendent based on the feedback from this work session that the board reached consensus on. So those will be the minimums, and I anticipate based on this discussion, the superintendent will be bringing additional items. As Mr. Prue referenced, we are meeting with our direct reports, and they will be prioritizing their recommendations based on our strategic plan priorities.
Thank you, Dr. Sabine. Are there any other questions or
Yeah, I just wanted to add,
comments?
I'm sorry. I just wanted to add that I too agree with you, Daryl. It sounds like we do have consensus around, I do think a targeted initiative should be lowering class sizes. Whether we can afford it or not, we'll discuss later, but it's a good thing to, and that involves contingency teachers as well. I think probably what we're bristling at a little bit is that this feels like a prioritized list because it's so specific, and yet we're still sort of in the general phase of deciding the budget. But, you know, for me, the apprenticeship program, expanding it would be fantastic. We know we have to preserve it and pay for it ourselves this time because we got a nice grant from the state board to keep it going. So that's a high priority for me, as well as I did like the idea of expanding that into using apprentices for the math program. School and safety and security assistance, I continue to think is working, and I'd like to see that expanded. And I guess my position on because I asked about vacation time too with the 12-month. My position there, I'm in favor of it only because staff, they've asked this, and we don't work day to day in this, and they've continued to ask that they go to 12 months. So I'm willing to support staff on that. I don't know if that would be at the top of my list budget-wise, if we have other funding priorities. I do think you guys have made your case that transportation router would be pretty crucial and would be helpful. So just take that feedback for what it is, but I'll gladly vote yes to the priorities.
Thank you. And it helps me to know that we're looking at these as a minimum. Yeah. And they are not in a prioritized listing. While class size is something that I think we all agree that is something we would like to see happen if that is possible and feasible. Something else that I am very interested in is transportation. We've heard a lot about activity buses and being able to have more kids participate in after-school activities. It's always been my thought that for our magnet programs, rather than having parents providing transportation, we could provide more access and opportunity to children if we were able to provide that transportation as a system. So for me, in addition to these as a minimum, I would like to see us be thinking about how we could make those transportation items a part of our budget.
Yep.
But
I would agree with you on that. That's actually, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Daphne.
Ms. Williams, I would have to agree with you 100% on that transportation point. I think that within schools we see that there's so many moments where students want to participate, they want to get out there, but they simply don't have the means to, because they can't get to school besides going there to class and back from class. They can't attend after school clubs, they can't attend before school clubs, and they can't go to events that happen maybe 6 p.m., 7 p.m. They can't go to concerts, they can't go to sporting events, and it's really sad to see that really diminishes the ability of students to completely and wholly participate in their schools.
Thank you. Thank you for that point. Anyone else?
I just have one question. Are any of the 44 staff transitions receiving per diems to work in the summer already? Like counselors do?
I don't believe so. This is predominantly, we're talking about second clerical staff that work in some of our highest need, more transient elementary schools. We're talking about middle school registrars, and then we're talking about some of our assistant principals that work 11 month instead of 12 months. So the registrars, the ESP staff would be 10 months to 12 month. The assistant principals would be 11 months to 12 month.
I'll just add, we have one elementary principal there, Cascade Elementary principal is 11-month, where all other principals are.
That building in general is closed in the summer because both the clerical staff and the principal do not work 12 months.
President Williams, I just want to add how much I appreciate the dialogue at this meeting as well as our work session. It was very rich discussion, and it helps the superintendent and staff as we prepare a draft budget that reflects those minimum priorities and targets, as well as other items that we may want to include as we in the draft or proposed budget as we reflect on this conversation, as well as work with key direct reports as they bring forward their prioritized budget recommendations.
Thank you, Dr. Savine. Is there any further discussion? Then we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the fiscal year 2026 budget priorities. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 affirmative, those opposed, 2 in opposition. Student member is voting with the affirmative, and the motion fails for lack of a 4th vote, or for lack of 4 votes. Okay, thank you. Our next item on the agenda is a memorandum of understanding for advertising rights with the Smithsburg High School Athletic Boosters Club. Mr. Prue, our Chief Operating Officer, is presenting.
Thank you again, Mrs. Williams, members of the board. This agreement is similar, really the same language as 3 other agreements you have with 3 other booster clubs. Same thing as Clear Spring, same thing as South Hagerstown High School, same thing as Boonesboro High School. Happy to answer any questions you have. The addenda, the appendix to the MOU actually outlines the locations and proposed pricing that the Booster Club intends to ask for some of the signage in the stadium and in the gym. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Prue. Is there a motion, please?
President Williams, I move to approve the MOU for the advertising rates with the Smithsburg High School Athletic Boosters Club.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any questions, any discussion? Okay, I'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the memo of understanding for advertising rights with Smithsburg High School Athletic Boosters Club. All those in favor? We have 5 affirmative. Student member concurs. We have and approved MOU. Our next item is consideration for approval of the advertising rights for South Hagerstown High School Athletic Boosters Club.
I think, Mrs. Williams, we have one more item before that one.
I'm sorry.
The MOU.
Oh, I'm sorry. I dropped down one. I'm sorry. Backing up to number 9. This is the MOU between the Washington County Board of Education and the Washington County Educational Support Personnel regarding a transportation differential.
Mrs. Williams and board members, as discussed in closed session, presenting this MOU to make an adjustment to the negotiated agreement that the Board of Education has with Washington County Educational Support Personnel to provide a shift differential, essentially an additional wage layered on top of certain individuals' already grade and step for bus drivers and bus attendants who are driving students out of county in non-public placements. This is an area of need where we are having trouble finding staff members willing to take those more difficult routes. We believe this would be beneficial in filling those positions and helping to get students where they need to go out of county.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Is there a motion, please?
President Williams, I move to approve a memorandum of understanding between the Washington County Board of Education and the Washington County Educational Support Personnel, Inc. regarding a transportation differential.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Is there a second, please? Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any questions, discussion? We'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve an MOU between the Washington County Board of Education and the Washington County ESP regarding a transportation differential. All those in favor? All right, we have 5 affirmatives, student member concurs. We have an approved MOU. Okay. And now, consideration for approval of the advertising rights for South Hagerstown High School Athletic Booster Club. Mr. Pruitt.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Board members, in April, you agreed on the advertising MOU with the South Hagerstown High School Booster Club. In August, you approved several advertisements. I'm back with one other for Fulton County Bank. They're partnering with the Booster Club for 3 different signs, one on the practice field along Maryland Avenue, one inside the building on the gym walls, and one on the stadium scoreboard facing the field. It's very generous of the Fulton Bank to take this on. The scoreboard is a 5-year commitment with a total value of $17,500, split in $3,500 payments over a 5-year period. And with your approval, South Hagerstown Boosters will work with the bank on having the signs created and hung on the property.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. Is there a motion, please?
President Williams, I move to approve the assignment of advertising rights as requested by the South Hagerstown High School Athletic Booster Club.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Second, please. Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any questions, comments, discussion? Move to the vote. All those in favor of approving the assignment of advertising rights as requested by South Hagerstown High School Athletic Booster Club, please raise your hand. We have 5 affirmatives. Student member concurs. We have approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to the second half of the superintendent's report, including his update. Dr. Servine.
Thank you, President Williams, Vice President Stauffer, members of the board. We've had an exceptional start to the school year, and I'm grateful to everyone in our learning community for making it a huge success. This year is also the start to a significant initiative in our school system, the implementation of our new strategic plan. In the spring, we first worked with a diverse group of stakeholders to design our strategic plan, and once it was approved by the board this summer, actually in July, we worked with staff to share our priorities and goals. It's critical that we also continue to have our students, families, and community stakeholders involved in this process as well. I'd like to share a short video about this plan, Your Journey, Our Commitment. Our schools are filled with pride and purpose. This will be an extraordinary year, one that begins a new chapter in the story of Washington County Public Schools. Your journey, our commitment.
It's a strategic plan developed for our community by our community. This plan is much more than a set of goals. It's a promise to every student, every teacher, and every member of our community.
We are here to support you, to challenge you, and to help you reach your highest potential.
Student success is at the heart of everything we do. Every classroom will be a space where curiosity is encouraged, challenges are embraced, and every student is prepared for what's next.
We are committed to removing barriers and expanding pathways to success for every student. We will connect our students to their passions and ensure they have the opportunities they need to succeed.
We believe in creating environments where every member of our school community feels safe, supported, and valued.
You belong here. Students and staff can thrive, and everyone's well-being is a priority.
We know there is power in partnerships with families, caregivers, and local businesses. Together, we will build strong, meaningful connections that enrich our students' learning experiences and their lives.
This strategic plan is our roadmap, but also it's a call to action. It's a call for each of us, teachers, staff, families, community members, to be actively involved in this journey. We must work together, learn together, grow together. We are united in our purpose. In Washington County Public Schools, your journey is our commitment. I want to extend my appreciation to our students and staff for sharing that critical message. Our schools are filled with, and we'll continue that message, right? I also want to extend a special thank you to our business community. Business community had multiple focus groups. They were part of our design team, just as well as the parents and students that we had represented. But our business community actually next Friday has invited me, along with team members, to highlight our newly adopted strategic plan at the Greater Hagerstown Committee meeting next Friday at the Community College. So we look forward to reconnecting with our business leaders. Also, I'd like to add that September is Attendance Awareness Month, and increasing student attendance is one of the priorities included in our strategic plan. WCPS is launching a campaign to encourage students to attend school on a regular basis. School is where connections are made, friendships are shared, and students are valued. We want them to know you belong here. We will be sharing some additional information with parents and families about the importance of sending their children to school daily. And we're also sharing materials across our district to make sure that this campaign is more visible in our schools throughout this school year. Also want to mention that September the 15th through October the 15th is observed as Hispanic Heritage Month. Over the next month, our students will be engaging in activities that celebrate Hispanic heritage and recognize the contributions of Hispanic members in our society. I'm excited to see what our educators will have in store for our students as I'm out visiting schools in weeks ahead. Finally, this evening, I would like to share some reminders about early dismissals for students in September and October. This coming Monday, September the 23rd, all students will be dismissed 2 hours early. And on Friday, October the 11th, students will also be dismissed 2 hours early on that day. President Williams, Vice President Stauffer, members of the board, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Savine. Okay, at this time, we'll have consideration of personnel actions with Dr. Webster, our Associate Superintendent for Administration and Leadership, presenting.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, members of the board, Dr. Savine. As discussed earlier during closed session, there are several staff changes for your review. At this time, I ask for approval of this evening's personnel actions.
Thank you, Dr. Webster. Is there a motion, please?
President Williams, I move to approve the personnel actions dated Tuesday, September 17th, 2024, as presented in closed session.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Colleagues, we're voting to approve the personnel actions dated Tuesday, September 17th, as presented earlier in closed session today. All those in favor? Okay, we have 5 affirmative, unanimous vote. Those actions are approved.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have reports to the board. First item is committee reports. We have 2 board members absent this evening. Do any of the committees wish to report? Those that are here, would you like to report, Dr. Zentmeyer?
I do. Curriculum and Instruction will meet at 1:30 at Springfield on September 24th. And we'll have CTE updates and elementary planning and the career ladder. They're on the agenda.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to report their committee?
I guess I'm next. Sorry. I'm still thinking you're finance.
Not anymore.
I know. Policy will meet this Friday at 9:30.
September 20th at 9:30?
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Anyone else?
Thinking back.
Okay. Would you like, Ms. Wang, would you like to say something about student government?
Sure. This past Saturday, the Washington County Association of Student Councils Board of Student Leaders, we had our first retreat of the year, where we kind of just were able to get together and discuss our goals for the year and decide on a plan of action to take as we go along our year. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to miscellaneous business, and under miscellaneous business, we have, as always, the future agenda items, future agenda item list. We have 2 items for October 1st, which is our work session day. The first is teacher recruitment, hiring, and new teacher induction. And the second is presentation of the audited financial statements and the auditor report. If you have a suggestion for an upcoming agenda item, please let a member of the Agenda Planning Committee know. We'll take care of getting that on a future agenda. That brings us to board member comments. Ms. Wang, would you like to begin down there this evening?
I had the privilege of attending the Aaron Brooks homecoming, which was a couple weeks ago, I think, and it was really inspiring to see such a committed and talented individual come from our county and come from my high school specifically, and to see him back here representing us on the world stage. It was quite a wonder to see. So I really appreciated that opportunity, and I enjoyed seeing Dr. Zentmeyer and Dr. Savine there as well. So
great, thank you. Mr. Bickford? Mr. Stauffer?
Yes, just like to congratulate Aaron Brooks. I was unable to make it to the ceremony for him. I was, hate to say this, but I was at a soccer format named after me at Williamsport High School, which was planned months ahead of time. But I hear a lot about Mr. Brooks from his former coach at North High, who's on a committee with me, Sports Hall of Fame in the county. The lady who was the homeless advocate, I'd like to get her phone number if I can get it and reach out to her. And the mother from Hager, I'd like to have her phone number and reach out to her also. And then I'd like to address something. I debated whether to do this. Sticks and stones can break my bones, but names will never hurt me. I think I'll make a movie, Despicable Me or something. Has that ever been made or something like that? But there were 2 speakers here tonight who spread some misinformation. And the one is a frequent visitor over the past few months. And he talks about people being proxies and stuff. And when he first approached Mrs. Williams and me at Smithsburg Day back in June, I guess it was, I think. Yeah, it was right after graduation, I guess. I told him that day that, it was obvious to me that he was a proxy for other elements in this county, is my guess. And I firmly believe that. And I'll just keep other comments about that to myself. Another speaker spoke of Salem Avenue. And I went on the walk up there, and there was a lady at the NAACP forum who told us about that. But it's my understanding that the initiation of that actually came from the Mr. G. What's his title up there?
Gardner, Mr. Gardner?
Huh?
Community manager.
Oh,
What is it?
School manager.
School manager, yes. Sorry for, and so forth. And I get text messages, and one recent one I got out to his group was telling members of the group that board and staff are very aware of Salem's concerns. So I guess that was an accurate statement. Would you agree, Dr. Sovine, or did I say something incorrect about that?
Mr. Prue and I have been out with school principal, and we have personally driven the routes and working through and certainly aware of the concerns expressed.
And the other thing is, it's interesting to know that Mrs. Williams and I have been elevated to a higher position than what we really hold. We are 2 of 7 board members on a board, and no board member sitting up here has any authority as an individual. The only authority we have is with the agreement of the total board. So I just want the public to know that Mrs. Williams and I do not run WCPS. We do not do that. The gentleman who does run WCPS operational matters is sitting to my left. So I just want the public to know that those were some things that I thought needed corrected tonight because they were not factual. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
I got nothing.
Dr. Zetmeyer?
The Aaron Brooks celebration was awesome. The STEM summer projects at Williamsport Elementary were awesome. And today is a holiday. It was established by Congress the year I was born, so it has been a holiday in the United States for a very long time. Happy Constitution Day. When leaving the Constitutional Convention, Benjamin Franklin was asked whether the Founding Fathers gave us a monarchy or a republic. He replied, "A republic, if you can keep it." Today, we the people have that authority, right, and responsibility to decide our nation's future. It is a day to recommit to preserving that republic and ensuring that our democracy not only survives, but thrives. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zetmeyer.
You just dated yourself.
I would have to say that I was quite surprised at some of the comments made this evening. I have to say that I personally, Melissa Williams, I have no policies. I have a personal standard of conduct, but any policy that speaks to the way that Washington County Public Schools is operated, that policy is decided by the 7 individuals who sit here at this dais, not me. The other thing that I was surprised to hear, stated as fact, was that Antietam Academy is not being utilized at all. And Dr. Sovine, if you would please, if that's true, I'd like to be made aware of that. And if it's not true, I'd like some assurance that it is operating and serving the students as was intended. So those are my remarks this evening. And with that, Dr. Sovine, if you have some concluding remarks that you would like to make, we appreciate hearing them.
Well, thank you, President Williams, and to comments regarding Antietam Academy. Pleased to share that it is in full operation. Matter of fact, the request has been made by a board member. The agenda committee has discussed this, and I believe it will be on the agenda for, I believe it's either a December or January update. So that will be public at that time. Also, I just want to take a moment to correct the record on statements that have been made repeatedly over the last several months regarding WCPS staff and board members deleting and hiding Facebook posts. This is not accurate. No WCPS staff or board members are deleting or hiding posts on the WCPS Facebook page. In 2018, WCPS developed a Facebook policy consistent with a social media policy developed by then Governor Hogan's administration. As such, since then, WCPS has used a Facebook profanity filter that is administered by Facebook and not WCPS staff. The filter identifies specific inappropriate language. Comments that include these words are not publicly visible. Although this filter may not address all inappropriate content, it is the best approach we've identified to date. Also want to emphasize that WCPS welcomes public comments and feedback, both positive and constructive, as we are a school district committed to continuous improvement. In doing so, we ask that constituents be mindful of the children and families we serve who typically are in attendance, both virtually and in person, at our Board of Education meetings, which you noticed here earlier at the start of the day, and or are following our various WCPS social media platforms. For this reason, in an effort to model for our students and families we serve, we ask that our constituents provide feedback in a civil and respectful manner. President Williams, Vice President Stauffer, members of the board, that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Dr. Savine. Colleagues, if there's no further business, we stand adjourned.